Good Erev Shabbos, everyone. Parshas Naso. I'd like to share with you three quick ideas, three lessons that we can learn and try to make ourselves into better Yidden, which is the goal, right? From this week's Parsha. Number one, we start with the Parsha of Soita, right? So one of the Parshas, one of the inyanim that come up in this week's Parsha is out of the Soita. The wife or the husband suspects her of doing promiscuous activities, and he gives her kinoi. He tells her, you can't be seen with this, you can't hang out with this individual, and she has yichud with him, and therefore he brings her to the Beis HaMikdash, where she has to bring a certain mincha, and she has to drink the famous water that will testify whether she's innocent or guilty. She has to drink this water that they give her in the Beis HaMikdash, that if she's taka guilty, she's going to physically fall apart, and we mean that literally. She's going to fall apart, and if not, then she'll be blessed and she'll have zera. The Ramban points out that this is the only mitzvah. We have 613 mitzvahs. Soita is the only mitzvah that there is a chelek nisi. Part of the fulfillment of the mitzvah involves a miracle. Sukkahs, you build a sukkah, you sit in it. It's not going to miraculously, you will it to come into existence and it'll just go up. You have to build it. You have to go buy your lulav and esrog. You have to purchase tzitzis. You have to make the tefillin. All other mitzvahs we have, there's no miraculous component to the fulfillment of the mitzvah. The only one out of 613, it's a great trivia question, the only mitzvah out of 613 that has a chelik nisi, part of the fulfillment of the mitzvah is a miracle, that she's going to fall apart. The Ramban points that out. And we see here the importance of the Jewish family unit. The bias ne'emun Yisrael. The mitzvah of Soita is coming to protect the sanctity of the Jewish home. And when there is a healthy Jewish home, there's a healthy bias, a healthy family, then people come out, the children will be raised in a moral way, in a Torah-tic way. We see in societies where there's a breakdown in the family unit, the immorality that comes out of those societies is unparalleled. The importance of the family unit and the mitzvah of Soita is coming to safeguard that, and that's why of all the 613 mitzvahs, dafka, it's the mitzvah of Soita that has this chelik nisi, this miraculous component. The Ramban doesn't say that. The Ramban just points out it has this miraculous component. What I'm suggesting humbly is that it could be, it's to protect this, to show the importance of protecting the sanctity of the bias ne'emun Yisrael. The Gemara in Soita asks, why is Nazir and Soita together? Why did the Torah first put the parasha of Soita, then the parasha of Nazir? And the Gemara in Soita Bey's answers the very fundamental Yisod. The Kol Haroya Soita b'Kilkula. Whoever sees, whoever witnesses the Soita b'Kilkula, he sees her coming to the Beis HaMikdash, should be Yazir Atzmai min Hayayin. He should take on the vow of Nazirus. Now we've mentioned this in the past. The opposite is true. Whoever saw the Nazir, the Soita b'Kilkula, the person who sees what wine could lead to, right? A Nazir, one abstains from wine. The Soita, adultery often is accompanied with lightheadedness and with wine. So that's the person who saw the Soita b'Kilkula, asked of Chaim Volozhiner and of Nachmi Breslov. That's the last person who would have to take on the vow of Nazirus. The person who has not been exposed to the Soita b'Kilkula that should take on the vow of Nazirus to protect oneself. But if I saw what the Soita did, if I saw myself where wine leads a person, wouldn't that serve as enough of a warning that I should not indulge myself in wine? So says Reb Chaim Volozhiner and Nachmi Breslov, the same teretz, they both say no. Now, inspiration is great to awaken within a person a desire. But a person is not going to change through inspiration. Inspiration is not going to change a person. There's only one thing that's going to change a person, and that's the person himself or herself. So it's fakir, it's the person who saw the Soita b'Kilkula, and he has this inspiration now to be a better person, to guard himself. It's dafka that person who should take on the vow of Nazirus and concretize the experience he went through. We often go to Eretz Yisrael, we come back with the chizuk. That is not going to keep us growing in Yiddishkeit, that experience. People go to Eastern Europe, and these are wonderful programs. But being on these programs or experiencing anything is not going to change a person. It's only the person who's going to change the person. So when we have these inspirational moments in our lives, which are very important, the mahalach is, the avodah is to take them and concretize them. We're experiencing one right now with COVID. Baruch Hashem, for 2 weeks already, we've been back in shul. That's unbelievable. But how is my Yehei Shmei Rabbah? Someone mentioned to me that he saw when he's davening that the people who were late to shul back then are late to shul now. The people who are davening very quickly are davening quickly now. People who are talking, they're talking now. We have to take that inspiration that we had being held back from Minyan. Now we have it back. The first Yehei Shmei Rabbah we said after months of not saying Yehei Shmei Rabbah was a different level Yehei Shmei Rabbah. And the key is the Roya Soita B'Kil Kula. The person who wasn't able to daven with the Minyan for 2 months. The person who saw the Soita B'Kil Kula, it's after that person that should be Yazir Atzmi Nayayin. It's the person who should try to figure out a way to keep that specialness, that freshness to his tefillah when he davens with the Minyan from now on, Be'ez Hashem. The third point I want to share with you very quickly is another commonality between Nazir and Soita, and that is the Nazir, as we mentioned in the Parshas Naso Drasha, the Nazir is Lahazir Hashem. It should be for Hashem. And the Gemara brings in the Dharma Daf Test the famous Ma'asim Shimon HaTzadik, the Nazir from the south, comes to him, beautiful hair, beautiful eyes, a beautiful face, and Shimon HaTzadik asks him, why did you become a Nazir? So he said, because I was a shepherd for my father, I went over to give the sheep water, I looked in my reflection in the water, and I saw how beautiful I was, and my Yetzer Hara wanted to be matrid me min ha'olam, wanted to take me totally off the derech. I said, you're a Rasha, what are you doing? And I made myself a Nazir. The Soita as well, the husband sees certain actions of his wife that he doesn't like, and he gives her kinui, he gives her a warning, and then there's a stira, which doesn't mean anything happens. The whole parsha of Soita is lav dafka referring to a woman who did something. It's a woman who's suspected of doing something. And the idea is to keep her away from doing that. So the Yesod is in Avodas Hashem, we'll say it like this. Once I'm snoozing the alarm, once I have this shaila in my mind, should I get up in the morning or not, I already, to an extent, lost the battle. Avodas Hashem is not holding a cheeseburger and then putting it down. Avodas Hashem, defeating the Yetzer Hara, is going down a different block than the McDonald's. The Yesod in Avodas Hashem is to figure out how I can wake up in the morning on time the first time. Once I'm in the battle already, in bed, I'm in that battle, to an extent I lost. I mean, hopefully I'll win, I'll overcome. But the Yesod for Nazir is this Yid saw that I'm susceptible. So he didn't wait for the opportunity to present itself to hopefully be misgaber than Yisayim. What this Yid does is, well before, weeks and months before he would have ended up in a certain place, at a certain time, with a certain person doing Aveira, way before the Yisayim was Oymid, came to him, he already took steps to remove himself from that situation. The Parsha of Soit is trying to take a woman who there's a suspicion and keep her away. Once a person's in the actual Nisayin, he's in the actual test, so he lost it to an extent, he lost already the battle. In Kashrus, we set up our restaurants that obviously everything should be kosher. So let's say we come in and we caught, they had chazer in the fridge in the back. So is that successful? Is that a successful system of supervision? So it is, because we caught it. But it's also a failure, and we have to think to ourselves, how did Bichlal get in there? The yesod of a good kosher supervision model is to ensure nothing non-kosher ever enters the place. And if something does, we catch it. But once it got into the restaurant, theoretically speaking, it gets into the restaurant, that's already a failure. Because we have to set up a system that's going to ensure it doesn't happen. It's the same thing with Yiddishkeit. Our obligation is to set up a system where Avedas don't present themselves. And if it does, b'di eved, we can deal with it properly. But that's already a failure. If I find myself in a situation of nisayon, that's already, I didn't safeguard myself. And that's the yesod, I think, of Nazir and Soita. It's teaching us that the battlefield should not be, when Aveira is here, do I run away or do I indulge? Chas v'shalom. The battlefield is, how do I make it that I never come the day of the Aveira? How do I set myself up that I'm never alone with a certain device that I can do something wrong with? How do I set myself up that I can bench with kavanah? Not that I ate at a time where I know I have a meeting in 5 minutes and a 15-minute drive from here. I have to set my life up in a way that Yiddishkeit is easy. I have to set my life up in a way that I'm not in the middle of Nisayin. These are the three ideas I wanted to share with you, the idea of the sanctity and the importance of the Jewish home, and that's why Soita is the only mitzvah that has a chelik nisi, that has a miraculous component to the fulfillment of the mitzvah. The proper place for inspiration in life, the juxtaposition of Soita to Nazir, is when a person has inspiration, that's the person who has to work to concretize that inspiration, or else we'll all go back to our old self. And this idea of the battlefield is not when the Aveir presents itself. The battlefield should be putting ourselves in a situation where we never come to that Nisayon, to that challenge. Wishing everyone a wonderful Shabbos.